Yeah. Is that okay?
Yep.
I'll get it for you, Rajan. I'll get it for you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another session with us at Aussizz Group. Today, we're going to be talking about another highly requested topic, and it's an occupation that is highly in demand in Australia right now. Because as you are all aware, there's a limited number of occupations that the immigration department is currently focusing on, and today's occupation is definitely one of the main ones that is in focus this year. So today we're going to be speaking about engineering occupations and their future PR pathways. And we're joined by Mr. Rajan Goyal, who is a registered migration agent in Perth. And he has over 6 years of experience in the industry. He has strong comprehension of the migration law, which helps him to prepare a decision-ready application for all his clients. And this facilitates the clients to receive positive outcomes on their visa applications. And this is all within the prescribed processing time with minimal risk of visa refusal. So you're in great hands today, and leave your questions for him in the comments below.
Hello, friends. As Riddhi said, my name is Rajan Goyal. I'm a registered migration agent. I work from Aussizz Perth city office. Today, we are going to talk about engineering occupations and their PR pathways. So engineering occupations, as is the case with most of the other occupations, the first thing that you need is a skills assessment. So you cannot just call yourself an engineer because you've studied Bachelor's of Engineering or Master's of Engineering. You have to have a skills assessment from a body called Engineers Australia before you can call yourself engineer for migration purposes. So Engineers Australia is a designated body, as you would be able to see in the slide here, for assessing the skills of engineers in Australia. So engineers, basically, engineering occupations can be divided into 4 categories. The first one is professional engineer. So all of your major engineering occupations, such as mechanical engineer, electronic engineer, electrical engineer, civil engineer, all come into under this category. The second one is engineering technologist. Now, for a professional engineer, one has to have a 4-year bachelor degree as a minimum. For engineering technologist, you can have the skill assessment after a 3-year bachelor degree. You do not need to have a 4 years bachelor degree to get a skills assessment as an engineering technologist. The third category is engineering associate. So the occupations like telecommunications planner, civil engineering draftsperson, mechanical engineering draftsperson, all of these occupations will fall under this category. And the fourth one is engineering manager. For this particular category, this is a managerial level occupation, and you'll need to have your skills employment assessed as well, along with your qualifications for you to be able to get a successful skills assessment as an engineering manager. So these are the 4 categories that we have, and we can possibly apply under one of these 4 categories to get a skills assessed for one of the occupations that is assessed by Engineers Australia. Now, Engineers Australia has different pathways under which we can apply for the skills assessment. The first pathway, and possibly the most easiest pathway and the cheapest pathway, is Australian qualifications. These are, so Australian qualifications is when you have qualifications, relevant qualifications from an Australian university, which is actually accredited by Engineers Australia. Not all Australian universities or colleges are accredited by Engineers Australia. So you have to make sure that if your qualification is accredited by Engineers Australia, you can apply under this accredited pathway. And then there are 4 other accredited pathways: Washington Accord, Dublin Accord, Sydney Accord, and other recognized qualifications. So if your qualifications fall under any one of these accords or in the other recognized qualifications category, you can apply under that particular pathway. So the requirements for accredited pathway is much less than the non-accredited pathway requirements. Under the accredited pathway requirements, you just have to present your qualifications. You do not have to, but under the non-accredited pathway, you have to actually make CDR, which consists of 3 career episodes. I'm just gonna come to that in a second, but which basically consists of 3 career episodes, which are 3 essays of 1,000 to 1,500 words based on your projects or your thesis or your engineering experience. So accredited pathway, as I was explaining earlier, the qualification has to be obtained in Australia for the Australian qualification accredited pathway. So the documents have to be colored scans of the originals. They don't need to be certified anymore. You have to upload your resume, and the fee is $291.50, including the GST. So under the Washington, Dublin, and Sydney Accord pathway, again, you have to have your occupation listed under Tier 1 or Tier 2. The documents, as again is the requirement by the other accredited pathways, the documents have to be colored scans of the originals. You have to upload your resume, and the fee is $470 approximately. For the competency demonstration report pathway, now this is a pathway for people who have done their engineering qualifications from a university or from a college that is not accredited by Engineers Australia, or which doesn't fall under any of the Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, or Dublin Accord. Now, in this pathway, if your overseas degree is not accredited or is in the list under Tier 3 or 4, you have to go through this pathway. Well, you need to prepare 3 career episodes here. You need to make continuous professional development report, and you have to make a summary statement as well to be able to successfully submit this application under this pathway. Now, the fee is $795 normal for normal applications, but if you want to fast track it, they charge you $335 on top of it. So it comes to nearly $1,250 approximately, the total fee, including the fast track fee. I mean, if you fast track the application, they only take around 20 working days. But if you do not fast track the application, they can take up to around 3 months. So it's always advisable that you pay the fast track fee, because the difference between the fast track and non-fast track is quite a lot. Again, coming back on the CDR requirement, this is the word limit for the career episodes, as I was telling you earlier about. The career episode have to be around 2,000 to 2,200 words, but they can be a little shorter as well. So you have to have a subject code, you have to have a time frame, you have to show your practical application of knowledge acquired during the subject that you studied. You have to properly show what are the difficulties that you faced while you were doing that particular project or engineering experience or whatever, and how you applied the solution to that particular problems. There's a very detailed migration skills booklet on the Engineers Australia website. I would recommend anybody who's making their career episodes to thoroughly read that booklet, so that they are aware what the requirements for the career episodes and the summary statement and the continuous development statement are. Well, a lot of people get their career episodes made from third parties. They do not make it themselves in Australia. And we've seen that Engineers Australia is not tolerating that. They have been giving out 12 months bans to people who give them the plagiarized career episodes to Engineers Australia. So be very so you should be very aware of that you should write your career episodes yourself, and anything more than 2% is not plagiarism is not accepted in the career episodes. You cannot actually just copy and paste images from internet. You have to make an organization chart, like who was your professor, who were your team members in that organization chart, and you have to have proper distribution of words between each section. So between the body and between the introduction and between the summary. So make sure you're aware of all those requirements before you start making your career episodes. You can, obviously, if you do not want to make the career episodes, you can do an associate degree and get, which is from a university which is directly accredited by Engineers Australia. And then you can get your skills assessment on that basis. That way, you won't have to make the career episodes and demonstrate the continuous development. Now, employment assessment is not mandatory for most of the occupations, except for other than engineering managers. So it doesn't matter whether you get your employment assessment done from Engineers Australia or not. But if you're claiming points for your employment in the visa application, the case officers will have to independently confirm whether those points are correct or not. That is the case even when the Engineers Australia has assessed your employment earlier. So it is a discretionary thing. So if you want to get your employment assessed, so you have to make sure you give them the employment reference letter, which is on the company's letterhead. You mentioned the pay rate, hours worked, duties performed. You give them the payment evidences like super, pay slips, government tax records. The additional fee for the employment assessment is $451. And when you apply for the employment assessment, along with your qualifications assessment, the fee is $360. So they've given you a little bit of discount there. So now, sorry, just give me a minute here. Let me just go through the questions that might have come through. So we are now going to talk about the state criteria in relation to various engineering occupations. Let's talk about Victorian pathway first. Now, Victoria does not have an occupation list at the moment. For Victoria, the PR pathway is highly influenced by the pandemic at the moment. So they just want people who are working in the target sector and who are using their STEM skills can put up their registration of interest and can possibly get themselves invited from Victoria. So for Victoria, for 190, you must have you must be working in the target sector, and you must be using your STEM skills. Engineering is part of the STEM skills, so you could be using your STEM skills and working in the target sector. Then you are eligible to for Victorian state nomination. It doesn't matter how long have you been working. You were earlier required to work at least 3 months or 6 months, but that requirement is no longer there. You only have to be living and working in Australia, even if it is for 1 day. If you're working in the target sector and using your engineering skills in it, then obviously you are eligible for Victorian state nomination. Well, these are the target sectors on the screen. If you could see them, the health, medical research, life sciences, digital, agri-food, advanced manufacturing, new energy, emissions reduction, and circular economy. Now, when we're talking about the target sectors, it doesn't, well, if you talk about the health target sector, for example, you do not have to be necessarily working in a health occupation. Like, you do not have to be a nurse to get invited under this sector. Even if you're a mechanical engineer working in a hospital, or whatever engineer working in a hospital, you could be eligible because you are then working in the target sector, which is the health sector. This is the Victorian state nomination. Let's move on to New South Wales. Well, New South Wales has now recently introduced a huge list for subclass 190. Now, this list consists most of the engineering occupations in it. The only eligibility criteria for New South Wales is that you should be at least living in New South Wales, and you should at least be living for 3 months, or you should be working in your nominated occupation. So you do not even have to be living there for 3 months. If you've already got a job in New South Wales and you're living there, you do not even have to show that you were resident for 3 months. But if you do not have a job at the moment, then you have to show at the time of invitation, at the time you get invited by New South Wales, that you are at least residing in New South Wales for the past 3 months. As I said earlier, most of the engineering occupations are on the 190 list, but because the criteria is not that hard, the points cutoff is pretty high for New South Wales state nomination for 190. So you could expect anything, the cutoff to be anything between 85 and 90 points for most of the engineering occupations for New South Wales 190 nomination. So this list is not material at the moment because, but most of the skills, engineering occupations are on the NSW 190 occupation list. For the NSW 491 requirements, now you've got 3 categories in it. The first one is that you should be living and working in regional NSW. The normal requirement is that you should be living and working in regional NSW for at least 12 months. And your occupation should be on the combined occupation list. Now, they've got the combined occupation list on their website. So you should go through that website and see whether your engineering occupation is on that list. And if it is on that list and you're working and living in regional NSW for at least 12 months, then you're definitely eligible under that category. And you can put up a registration of interest there. Now, some of the regions can also invite you if you only work there for 3 months and live there for 3 months, and you've got a further employment contract of 12 months, let's say. But that's on a case-by-case basis. So the normal requirement is 12 months under the living and working in regional NSW category, but you could be invited with a 3 months work and living requirement if you fulfill that requirement as well. The second stream is that you've studied in a regional area for at least 2 years. Then you also become eligible for regional NSW nomination. And there's a third stream as well, which was very recently introduced, which you do not have to fulfill any criteria for, as long as you've got the skill assessment for an occupation, which is on the regions list. So NSW has got various regions. So you should make sure that your occupation is on one of the regions list. So as long as your engineering occupation is on that list, you could apply for the registration of interest under the stream 3. But NSW has actually clarified that they will be preferring applicants who satisfy the stream 1 criteria, which is living and working in regional NSW for at least 12 months or 3 months on a case-by-case basis. I've got this question here from Lohit Ramachandresh, that what if I'm working in 2 target sectors? I'm assuming that he's asking for Victoria. Well, if you're working in 2 target sectors, you're more than welcome to apply for the registration of interest. That only increase your chances of getting invited by Victoria. So I don't see any harm there if you're working in target sectors and you're using your STEM skills and you've got the skills assessment for your occupation. Would an accountant working in hospitality field be eligible for 190 Victoria? Well, the thing is, Lashi, the thing is that they are inviting people who are using their STEM skills. So accountants might not be eligible under that category. They are actually preferring people, but you're working in the target sector. If you're working in the hospitality field, well, hospitality is not necessarily one of the target sectors, so there might be a little bit of difficulty there. With the Tasmanian state nomination criteria for engineers, sorry, just a second. Tasmania has recently made some changes as well. So Tasmania has a few categories under which you can apply for the Tasmanian state nomination application. So Tasmania also has a list, but you do not have to necessarily have your occupation on that list. So one of the categories for Tasmanian state nomination is that you are a Tasmanian graduate. So which essentially means that you have studied there for at least 1 year. And you have to study particular education. You cannot be studying any like a Cert 2 or Cert 3 in everything. So just make sure that you know the criteria. You could also, there's another category in Tasmania, which is called working in Tasmania. Now, under this, you can be considered for Tasmanian state nomination if you've been working in Tasmania for 6 months. You do not have to necessarily work in your own occupation for 6 months. You could be working in other occupations as well, but you might have to prove your employability at the time you apply for the Tasmanian state nomination. Also, if your occupation is on the Tasmanian skilled occupation list, they've got the skilled occupation list, TSOL, you do not have to work for 6 months even. You could be working in 3 months in the nominated occupation or related employment, which is on the Tasmanian skilled occupation list. Now, it doesn't, so you can fulfill the working in Tasmania requirement, but just working for 3 months to be eligible for for Tasmanian state nomination. So that's Tasmania for the NSW for the engineering occupations. Just moving on to South Australia in a second. I've got this question from Dwarag, which says, what are the chances for bachelor in civil and masters in structural in NSW? Well, if you can get a skill assessment for structural engineer or civil engineer, then obviously your chances in NSW are pretty good, because it's got that occupation on that list. And obviously, as I said earlier, that you can look at a cutoff of around 85 to 90 points with the NSW state nomination. So can I lodge 2 ROIs for Victoria for different target sector, Lohit? Lohit, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure you can lodge 2 ROIs. I don't think anything prevents you, but you can actually email me. I can double check that for you. I haven't done that before, but I don't see any, I haven't read otherwise. So I could say definitely you can lodge 2 ROIs for Victoria. Well, Jatinder is asking me, how about accountants living in Sydney without job can apply under Stream 3491 NSW and Schedule 2 WA? Well, Jatinder, you can apply for, as I said, Stream 3 NSW does not have any criteria other than the fact that your occupation should be on one of the region's occupation list. So just check out the region's occupation list, and if accountant is on that list, you can apply for the registration of interest for that particular RDA. And as far as Schedule 2 WA is concerned, yes, WA does not have any requirements either. So accountant is on the WA list. You can apply for the expression of interest for under the Schedule 2 WA. And after you get invited, obviously you have to give 12 months employment contract from an employer in WA for the occupation accountant. But we've seen in the recent invitation rounds, especially for the WA, that the points cutoff for the 491 visa has gone as high as 110 points or 115 points. So if you're sitting at high points like 95 points or 90 points of your own, it is highly recommended that you put up the EUIs for both NSW, for WA Schedule 2 and NSW Stream 3. What are the chances for quantity surveyor working as aged care worker in Victoria for the 190 visa? See, Shalika, I am based out of Perth, but aged care worker working as an HU seem to be working in the health sector, which is one of the target sectors. So I would say definitely put up your ROI. And it seems that you're using your STEM skills as well, as you can, as long as those are there. So you do have a chance of getting invited there as well. Moving on to the criteria for South Australian state nomination. So South Australian state nomination is occupation-based criteria. So most of the, I would say most of the engineering occupations are there on the South Australian state nomination list, occupation list. So South Australian state nomination is occupation specific. So you just have to go on the South Australian website and look at the criteria which is mentioned against your particular occupation. So every occupation could have a different criteria there. So some of the occupations, they require you to be working in South Australia for 6 months. For some of the other occupations, they might require you to be working in South Australia for 12 months. There are other pathways as well where your experience requirements can come down. Like example, the graduate essay graduate pathway, where your experience requirement can come down to 3 months. And then there's talent and innovators pathway where your experience requirement can come down to 0 if you can fulfill the other conditions there. So yeah, they've been recently introduced some changes in the South Australian pathway. Northern Territory, it's the same criteria as was last year. So you should be working and living in Northern Territory for at least 12 months. If you are if you've not graduated from Northern Territory in your nominated occupation or a closely related occupation. If you have graduated from Northern Territory, then you can, if you've studied there for 2 years, then you can actually sort of nominate under that, nominate yourself under that category and apply for the Northern Territory graduation straight away. So for people who are not graduated from Northern Territory, you have to be living and working there for at least 12 months now in your nominated occupation or closely related occupation. So international student graduates can be eligible for 190 as well, but people who have been working there for interstate, who've been working there for 12 months, would mostly be eligible for 491 only. ACT has this critical skill list at the moment on which it has various engineering occupations as well. You have to, the basic criteria for 491 and 190 is that for 491, you should be at least working in an occupation in Canberra for at least 3 months. And for 190, it's 6 months. Now, you do not have to necessarily work in your nominated occupation, but if you're not working in your nominated occupation, you tend to lose points on the Canberra matrix. So Canberra ACT has a matrix where you have to have a minimum of 65 points as well. If you do not have that, you are not eligible for Canberra state nomination. So there are various things that you get the points for in the ACT matrix. So if you're working in the critical sector, you get extra points. If your partner has a proficient English, you get extra points. So just go through the Canberra matrix and make sure that you will be able to make at least 65 points for you to become eligible for ACT state nomination. Well, Queensland is actually suspended at the moment. So they are actually, they will reopen shortly for this financial year. So whenever they reopen, we will see what the criteria is. As far as WA is concerned, WA has 2 streams. One is general stream and one is graduate stream. They've got a lot of engineering occupations on under both these streams. Some of them overlap as well. So under the general stream, anybody from Australia who's residing anywhere in Australia who has a skill assessment for one of the engineering occupations is eligible to apply an expression of interest for. And under the graduate stream, you must have studied in WA for at least 2 years. So there are obviously other criteria as well, but this is the basic criteria. So under the general stream, normally people are getting invited at higher points, we've seen. And under the graduate stream, people do get invitations at even 65 points, 70 points, 80 points, according to the past statistics. So you've got a very good chance of getting an invitation by WA as well for the engineering occupations. So as I said, WA has got a host of engineering occupations on its list. Some of them are the occupations which you can see on your list here. What are the chances for chemical engineer with 100 points for NSW 491 stream 3, Ahmed? I would say, Ahmed, 100 points is a great chance. So you should definitely put up in registration of interest for one of the regions which has this occupation on the list, right? Sorry, I'm just looking at the questions. If a job in solar installation, Vishma is asking, consider as a target sector? Well, I don't think so, Vishma. Solar engineering would not fall in one of these target sectors. No, it would not. All right, so these are your chances with the engineering occupations for various state nominations. Also, most of the engineering occupations are on the MLT-SSL list as well, which essentially means that you can lodge an EOI for subclass 189 as well. And if you've got reasonably high points, you can get invited under the 189 stream as well. And because most of the engineering occupations are on including the engineering technologists, are on the MLT-SSL list, you are also eligible for the family-sponsored 491. So if you've got a family member who's living in regional Australia and is a citizen or PR of Australia, then you could be eligible under the 491 family-sponsored stream as well. And we have seen in the past, engineers have received invitation in the family-sponsored stream at lower points as well, like as low as 75 points, 80 points. Engineers have received invitations earlier under the family-sponsored stream. So all these streams are open for you if you've got a skills assessment for one of the engineering occupations, which is subclass 190, 491 under the state sponsorship scheme, and subclass 491 under the family sponsorship scheme, and subclass 189, which is the skilled independent visa. So all these, obviously, there's additional criteria as well, and you have to go through the state list as well and see which occupation in particular is on that list. So you make sure you have a skills assessment. If you do not have a skills assessment for one of the engineering occupations, then you are not an engineer for migration purposes. So make sure if you've done your qualifications from non-accredited university or a college or from overseas, which is not accredited by Engineers Australia and doesn't fall under any one of the accords, make sure you write your career episodes properly. They're based on heavyweight engineering projects or engineering experiences or your thesis, and you present the career episodes in the manner as is listed on the Engineering Australia's website. So this is the most important step for people who want to get PR in the engineering occupations, that they apply for the skills assessment in proper manner. Once you apply for the skills assessment and you get a positive skills assessment in one of the engineering occupations, then you can start looking at various pathways that might be open for you. Some of the engineering occupations are on the priority migration list as well. Most of the engineering occupations will be eligible for employer-sponsored scheme as well, which is ENS, Employer-Sponsored Nomination Scheme, which is subclass 186, which is a PR visa. If you've got 3 years of overseas experience or 3 years of Australian experience or 3 years of experience for that matter anywhere in the world, you could be eligible to be sponsored by an employer as well directly for a permanent visa. And if you've got lesser experience, you might be eligible for other employer-sponsored visa if you find an employer who's willing to sponsor you. So you make sure you consider that option as well if you're not able to fulfill one of the state's criteria and are not sitting at very high points for 189 or for family sponsored. So yeah, there are various options available for engineering occupations: employer sponsorship, family sponsorship, state sponsorship, and independent occupations, independent visas as well. So make sure you study your eligibility under all the streams and choose the right pathway. Just if you've got any other questions regarding your engineering occupation and your eligibility for various states, just email us personally or just contact us. We'll leave our contact details in the comment section, and you're more than welcome to contact us and we'll answer all your queries. Thank you for joining us today, and have a lovely day.